When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.
Well, welcome everybody to what we can call a grand jury edition on the road to the Breeders' Cup, our Breeders' Cup preview show. Got a nice quad box, as they like to say on NFL Red Zone. James, Ashley, Vance, and myself joining you to take a look ahead at a series of the races this coming weekend at Del Mar and get you set up for the Breeders' Cup. Give you some of our thoughts on horses that we like in specific races, and also an upset pick that we are looking forward to wagering on this coming weekend. And we certainly want you to watch and wager with us at TwinSpires, and we want to help you out. And we have our seasonal Breeders' Cup money back offer. All of the Breeders' Cup races, Friday and Saturday, you are going to get your money back up to $10 if your win bet finishes second or third. Presumably with all races being at least 8 starters, you would get back money for third place in all of those events. And as of this moment, every Breeders' Cup race does have at least 8 starters, so hopefully that holds true throughout the weekend. But be sure to go to TwinSpires.com, go to the offers page, opt in, and get a little bit of insurance on your win wagers throughout the Breeders' Cup this weekend at TwinSpires. And don't forget another one of TwinSpires' signature events, the Bet Share, sharing the thrill with your friends, with people on social media. You put together a ticket. It could be a pick 4, it could be a pick 5, really anything you want. You post it out there in social media. You text it out to your friends. Everybody buys shares, and you're able to alleviate some of the stress of a larger ticket and get people involved, get in the action, get in on the fun, and turn one winner into a group winner, which could be a blast if you do it with the right group of people. So be sure to get involved with the Bet Share at TwinSpires, unique to the ADW space there. And for the first year, TwinSpires is a proud partner with the BCBC. You can wager in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge with us at TwinSpires. We've had feeders and qualifiers throughout the fall season, but there is still time. You can still register and buy your way in at TwinSpires, or you can go to the Breeders' Cup themselves, purchase your spot there, and tell them you want to wager with TwinSpires, and we will get you registered and set up there. Registration closes tomorrow afternoon prior to the first races at the Breeders' Cup, so be sure to get your entry in if you want to wager in the BCBC with us at TwinSpires. All right, that gets rid of the pleasantries. Let's dive in, guys. We got 6 races that we want to talk about, and we are going to go in chronological order, starting with a pair of them on Friday. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile is going to kick off the discussion, and we're going to start with Ashley, who's going to give us a look at who she thinks is going to be the winter book favorite for the Kentucky Derby.
So I'm going with a value play here. I'm going with Gaming, the 7 horse here. And this is a Bob Baffert runner. He has 3 in the field, but I like this horse in particular. Has 2 wins, both at Del Mar, and stretching out in distance, stretching out to a route for the first time. Irad Ortiz Jr. is aboard. He won this race with Forte back in 2022, and Bob Baffert, of course, has 5 wins in this race, a record for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So I'm going to go with the 8-1 price.
Good price on a Baffert trainee who's no stranger to the winner's circle in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Southern California mainstay. This horse certainly can benefit if the inside 2 start to duke it out early and could set up his late rally. James, your views on the Juvenile?
Well, I'm going to go with East Avenue. I liked East Avenue's debut win at Ellis Park. That's over 6 furlongs. When he stretched out to 2 turns in the Breeders' Futurity last out at Keeneland, there was some speed in there, and he quickly just put all the other speed to rest, sprinted clear, and, really I thought it's just a beautiful mover, one with authority, with seemingly plenty left in the tank. The thing about this Breeders' Cup Juvenile is that there is some other speed in the race, but it's not as speed loaded as recent additions, in my estimation. I can just look at these California horses that have taken turns, at least in their last 2 starts, with Getaway Car and Citizen Bull beating each other. And we're going to see East Avenue here breezing with Tyler Gaffleone on the outside. This is his final 5 furlong drill at Churchill on October 25th. He went in 1:01. Really just like I said, under not being asked for anything whatsoever, continued to gallop out real well. He's the son of Medaglia d'Oro. I love his stride. I think he has more to offer, and I think he'll be controlling speed from the inside where Tyler Gaffleone. So I'm going with East Avenue.
Yeah, it'll be no surprise or no secret in terms of what his tactics are going to be. A lot will depend on what Getaway Car does. It's kind of interesting to see in the last effort, Getaway Car and Citizen Bull. Getaway Car did not show the speed that he showed sprinting. Citizen Bull grabbed the racetrack that day and went wire to wire. Wonder if they were trying to see if Getaway Car could rate because he had folded up shop in the previous try when showing early speed. So we'll see what the dynamics look like, but pretty safe to say that East Avenue is going to be go for launch coming right out of the gate. And he certainly did chew up and spit out Ferocious last time out at Keeneland. And Ferocious is a horse that has done battle with Chancer McPatrick before. And Vance, that's a nice segue into your thoughts on the juvenile.
Yeah, I think on paper, the East Coast Colts have an edge over the West Coast. And as far as price is concerned, I'm going to go with the second choice, or the expected second choice, Chancer McPatrick. Won the Hopeful and the Champagne, closing into some fast paces. Might be a little bit different as he stretches out to 2 turns for the first time, but this is a really talented colt from Chad Brown, who won the first Breeders' Cup Juvenile held at Del Mar with Good Magic. So Chancer McPatrick for me at 3-1 here, morning line. A little bit better price than on East Avenue. I'm hoping that he will get the pace to run at. And this horse has got a really good turn of foot, as he displayed both at Saratoga and at Aqueduct, especially last out, making a big, bold move around the far turn. And if he can get himself into contention in that fashion over this racetrack, I think he could be tough to fend off at the end.
Yeah, if you're a Ragozin player, kind of a standout. If you look at the Ragozin sheets, he seems to be the fastest horse. Obviously, the Ragozin figures do take how wide you go into account in their speed figures. So no surprise that he fares exceedingly well given the trips that he's had and eye-opening moves, which is why I like him as well, for all the reasons that you said. My concern with Chancer McPatrick, of course, is the shape of the racetrack at Del Mar. We've seen times in Southern California Breeders' Cups where the track can play very kindly to the inside and play kindly to speed. Doesn't mean it has to be that way, but Del Mar is known to be a racetrack that does play well to speed. And I would advise watching the races earlier on in that day to see how it is playing and to make sure that the track doesn't change at all through the day, because we have seen Breeders' Cup Fridays in the past that certainly have played well to inside speed, especially out in Southern California. So that is my one concern with Chancer McPatrick, given where he's drawn, where East Avenue is drawn. And there's no question that Chancer McPatrick is likely going to be coming from last or second to last here as he takes back, drops back, and makes that one bold move. But I do agree. I think he's the most talented horse in the race. I think East Avenue might be the most precocious in the race given his early speed, and it's going to make for a compelling stretch drive. I think both have fairly equal chances to win. So I went with the second choice on the morning line, but I do think this race is going to be relatively formful. All right, let's turn to the second race on the Friday card that we are going to look at, and it is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This race is going to be wrapping up the Friday card, and Vance, you have a bit of prowess for the turf, especially the international runners, so we'll give you first crack here.
Yeah, this is a race European horses have tended to dominate for quite a number of years now, and we've got a lot of European representation here. A couple of them, like New Century and Kudra, have already run here in North America. Those two ran 1-2 in the summer stakes at Woodbine, and a good performance on both of their parts. I am going to take a stand against those two, however, because I think number 13, Henri Matisse, faced a much better competition in Europe than either New Century or Kudra did before they came to North America in September. Henri Matisse, very formful races in Ireland this fall. He won the Futurity Stakes and ran second in the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes at the Curragh, which is Ireland's top 2-year-old race. And in the Futurity, he wound up defeating Hot as Hell, who has since come back to run very impressively, winning the Beresford Stakes in Ireland and then the Group 1 Futurity Trophy at Doncaster. So the Futurity form at the Curragh has worked out really well. Last time Henri Matisse ran in early October in the Prix Jean-Luc Lagardère at Longchamp. Obviously not his best performance at all. He was kind of buried along the inside on a track taking absorbing a lot of moisture at that point in the card, and he didn't run particularly well there. He ran with blinkers as well. He gets the blinkers off for this race. He gets the firmer ground that he likes. Aidan O'Brien has been successful in this race before, so I think perhaps the one caveat I have is the post position here, number 13. That's a tough post to win from, going a mile on the turf at Del Mar. But as far as class is concerned, I think Henri Matisse probably has an edge over the other Europeans. And 6-1 morning line, if I get something like that, I'll take it.
Yeah, a little help from the post position gods with the scratch of Minaret Station. Tenacious Leader also out, and the AEs are not drawing in, so we're down to a field of 12 here. James, we're going to give you a crack here. Looks like the international contingent may have the Americans surrounded in this one.
Well, they may have the Americans surrounded, and I think horses drawn outside. I'm not too worried about Del Mar when they're not running like 12 or 14 horse fields. I thought in 2017 and 2021 at Del Mar, horses breaking from middle or outside posts were fare better than horses from inside. At least the ones from the inside that didn't have speed or tactical speed, they had trouble working out a trip often. I respect Vance's pick as well as New Century and Amori City. They'll be on all my multi-race, but I'm taking a swing at an upset with number 3, Noble Confessor. This is a colt that Todd Pletcher ran twice on dirt. His dam is a sister to Sweet Melania, who's a multiple graded turf stakes winner, finished 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf herself. And Noble Confessor switched to grass for the first time in the Pilgrim, and despite being a maiden, I thought he ran better than the winner. I thought the winner was on the best part of the course, got the jump on Noble Confessor. He was behind horses in upper mid-stretch. When he finally found a seam, it was down towards the inside, and I thought he finished closed powerfully. I recommend anybody watch that gallop out of that Pilgrim, because it looks like to me he's about 10 lengths in front midway on the first turn. So I thought that was a real encouraging turf debut. I'm not surprised to see Todd Pletcher run a maiden right back in the juvenile turf, because they think that they can win with Noble Confessor, and I'm going to have an upset.
Yeah, this would definitely be a separator for you, especially in the multi-race exotics, a maiden in the Breeders' Cup, and not just a maiden in the Breeders' Cup, but going up against a strong international contingent. So I'll never talk anybody off of a bomb in the Breeders' Cup. So Noble Confessor, a big pick. Ashley, looks like you are in lockstep with Vance in your thoughts in the juvenile turf.
Yes, we have the same pick, and he has mentioned a lot of the reasons that I like that horse as well. I will also note that Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore have won the last 2 editions of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And if you're looking for a longer shot, though, I'll throw out Amori City for Charlie Appleby with William Buick aboard. I think has a chance here, too. But went up against Henri Matisse and, finished further back, racing 7 furlongs, both stretching out to a mile here. But if you're looking for a little bit better of a price, maybe go with the Charlie Appleby runner, because he does well in this race as well.
Yeah, I share a lot of the sentiments that Vance had, especially as it came to the 2 horses coming down from Woodbine and Al Qudra and New Century, who I thought both benefited from a pace that collapsed that day. And I was almost more impressed with Dream On prompting that pace and staying on for 3rd and running well than I was with the horses that ran 1-2, given those pace dynamics. Henri Matisse's big concern for me is that he's got some antics in him for sure. Sometimes, last time out, kind of mug Seagulls 11, can kind of duck in and out in the stretch at times, and tying that in with an outside draw concerns me. And I think the winner of this race is coming out of that Vincent O'Brien race. And I agree with what Vance's point was, that group of runners I feel are better than the pair that went up to Woodbine. And I think you're going to get a better price on them, as the morning line seems to indicate. So I'm going to take a price with Seagulls 11. He seems to be a horse. He's a big, good-looking son. He's got that nice white face that reminds me a little bit of Talismanic back in the Breeders' Cup Turf a few years ago. But this horse has shown an affinity for running well with proven Group 1 competition. He's not far behind Henri Matisse at all. And the price is probably going to be 3 times as good, and he has a better draw. And I think of all of the European runners, this is going to be the one that's likely overlooked. I understand Ryan Moore obviously chose off this one, but and he's actually Seagulls 11 is a horse that is a stablemate to Waco Kid, who's also in this spot. But Seagull's 11 for me, I think, is going to work out a good trip. He's going to be able to stalk and pounce. And again, it comes down to value, perceived value. And I just prefer him with this draw, especially to the two that are shipping down from Woodbine who shipped in for the summer stakes. So I'll try to wrap up Breeders' Cup Friday as well with a bit of a price play in Seagull's 11, who's given a 15-1 chance on the morning line. Well, if we come out of there on Friday with any money left, and hopefully we do have some, we will have some races on Saturday to look at. And we're going to flip the page on over. And the first race we're going to look at is the Breeders' Cup Turf, which is, in a lot of years past, been the penultimate race on Breeders' Cup Day, but it finds its way in the middle of the card this year. James, we're going to put you in the leadoff spot for the Turf.
Yes, I'm going to go with number 3, Shahryar. Listen, last year he broke from post 1 at Santa Anita in the Breeders' Cup Turf, and I thought he ran a big race to be third. I mean, he was gaining on up to the mark. I don't think there's any runners close to the caliber of August Rodin and up to the mark who were 1-2 last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Shahryar was a clear third. And let me just say, I think he has improved this year as a 6-year-old. You can just look at his form lines. He was, 5th in the Dubai Shima Classic and 11th in the Sapporo Canin last year before running a bang-up race in the Breeders' Cup Turf for third. This year, he ran a really big second in the Shima Classic, and he finished a respectable 5th in the Sapporo Canin. So I just think he's coming in to Del Mar in better form than he was last year, and I think he's got a big shot to win the Breeders' Cup Turf from off the pace. And here we are watching him work.
I think we lost Darin.
I think we did.
I believe I'm up next, though, so I'll just lose me because I think I was out of the feed for a second. But I'm going with number 11, Rebels Romance. This is the morning line favorite, but I feel like in this edition, going to be very hard to beat a specialist here. 9 for 12 from and 4 for 5 this season. Won 2 of the last 3 Breeders' Cup Turf editions. So I'm sticking with the morning line. And Vance, I know you're on the same page to add on to that.
Yeah, this edition of the Turf did not come up particularly strong, either from a domestic or international perspective. And Rebels Romance, having won this race 2 years ago at Keeneland, is a slight class standout in this race. Had a bad season last year, but he's really come back to the fore this term, winning in multiple countries, defeating Shahryar in the Dubai Shima Classic. Comes off of a Group 1 win in Germany, which is a little tighter finish than his fan base might have wanted coming into this race. But he does seem like the class of this race, and it was kind of shown 2 races back in the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth at Ascot, where he finished third, kind of behind Blue Stocking, the runner-up who went on to win the Arc de Triomphe, and then the winner is I'm bound for the Japan Cup. So Rebels Romance has a great form line in the King George 2 races back, and again coming off of a Group 1 win in Germany, narrow one, but I think he'll reassert himself a little more strongly. And as you can see here, this is the Group 1 in Germany, the Price von Europa, I believe, at Cologne. And
Palladium vor Außen Rebels Romance, der in die Entscheidung gebracht wird.
You can see Rebels Romance and the Godolphin Silks here kind of moving up, and heavy favorite in this race. It wasn't obviously coming a couple of weeks before the Arc de Triomphe. It's not the the deepest Group 1 event on the European racing calendar, and he does just kind of eke out a victory over a horse that he probably should have handled a little more strongly, but still a pretty good effort on his part, and Rebels Romance will take a lot of beating at Del Mar on Saturday.
Yeah, and that was a big race just to get him back in form. I mean, it's the same pattern, right, from his 2022 coup at Keeneland when he won the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, he was almost 6-1 that day. Going to be a much shorter price. The 5-2 morning line favorite, Rebels Romance in the Turf. Darin, good to have you back. We've all gone over our Turf picks. You're up.
Man, I appreciate it. Sorry about that. I like the Ghost of Machine pops up at the exact worst time. I cut out when you were talking about Shahryar, and I am actually in lockstep agreement with you. I actually needed him last year, and the rider in that race made a poor decision where if he would have stayed in the spot that he was in coming off the term, he actually was in the same position that Auguste Rodin ended up taking to become the winner. And he vacated that spot and gave up the spot that actually produced the winner of the race. And I think he actually had a chance to win last year had he not done that. So he looks to be in similar form this year. He's running some big spots. I think the Del Mar turf course is similar to Santa Anita for him. I have no issues with him over this course, where you do have some questions with some of the European runners sometimes when they go to a tight turn left-handed course. We don't have those concerns with Shahryar, and the price is definitely right at 10-1. I heard you mention Rebels Romance. I do concede he's definitely the horse to beat. He's got definitely the class of the field, but I'll take the better value on Shahryar, and I do think that Japan has a big shot to have a big Breeders' Cup, and Shahryar definitely is included in that. So, all right, let's try to pick up where we left off. We will transition from the turf to the classic here. And Ashley, we will give you first crack at the classic, which is actually going to kick off a late pick four sequence for the first time in the history of the Breeders' Cup.
Hopefully I don't cut out because I keep having internet issues as well. But I'm going with another Bob Baffert runner, Newgate, at 20-1. I don't know if we'll get that price at post time, but I'm looking at pace scenario here. I'm looking at the last out start for Newgate at 1 1/8. Had a very good closing kick, a 1:15 Brisnet late pace rating, stretching back out to 1.25 miles, has a win at that distance, and has finished in the money in 3 starts at Del Mar, so likes this track, and I think has a good chance sitting off the pace here, and I'm going to go for a big price because I think it's a wide open classic.
Yeah, I think you are going to get pretty close to all of that 20-1 just based on the field, the horses in the race, and 14 horse field. Some of these horses are going to have to offer some value, and I can certainly see Newgate being a horse that gets overlooked in this spot, regardless of it being a Bob Baffert trainee and who's obviously won the Breeders' Cup Classic many times. James, your top selection here in the Classic.
I'm with Ashley in the Breeders' Cup, $7 million Breeders' Cup Classic.
Maybe you're not getting that price, Ashley.
I know, right?
Yes. I like Newgate. And I'm just going to say Newgate, I didn't think he showed much at 2. He's starting to come on last year when he ran second in the Sham and then won the Bob Lewis. And then he went to the sidelines for 11 months. I thought early this year, it was like early in his three-year-old camp season for him. He was starting over, 3 starts into it. He wins Sanity and Handicap. And then he ran poorly in Dubai. But one thing that was popping up in that Sanity Handicap and in the Dubai race was he wasn't getting out of the gate very well. And when he came back last time, Newgate in that California Crown, once again, he broke terribly, I thought, that day. And that was a real moderate pace. And he was widest of all. And he ran his eyeballs out to get beat a neck. That race knocked Subsanador and National Treasure, unfortunately, out of it because it was an extremely fast race on paper. And Bob Baffert's only like 30% win, second off the layoff. His horses often move forward. I think this horse is still a developing type that hasn't, found his best form yet. And I like the fact that he came right back to the work tab, drilled these 5 furlong bullet works. I think the addition of blinkers on Newgate is just to get him out of the gate. Baffert doesn't want him walking out of the gate in a 14-horse field. He gets this mid-pack stalking trip with Frankie. I think he's got a real chance.
Yeah. So double vote for Newgate at 20-1 given out here on the Jerry Breeders' Cup preview show. Vance, Europe is sending over probably their best hope they deem in the Classic in quite some time, and an international superstar in City of Troy. He's given a lot of confidence on the morning line. Make your case for him.
He's, to me, the undisputed class of the race. Whether he's going to show that on dirt remains the question. A lot of emphasis is on the fact that he is a son of Triple Crown winner Justify, so that in itself is giving Coolmore, trainer Aidan O'Brien, the confidence to even try him in this race. Otherwise, I don't think they would have. But this horse only beaten once, and he put that defeat long past him with impressive victories in the Derby at Epsom, the Eclipse at Sandown, and then the International at York. The last 2 races over 1.25 miles. Of course, he's already proven he can stay a mile and a half, which I think, the fact that he can run a mile and a quarter and a mile and a half quite impressively and efficiently says a lot more than maybe some of the other horses that he'll be facing in the Classic. Now, the main drawback, besides him trying dirt for the first time, the 5-2 morning line as a 5-2 morning line favorite. I mean, if he starts anywhere near that, he's not going to be a value play for sure in this. And there's no guarantee that he's going to go off the post time favorite, but if he is, he's probably not the best wagering play in here. If you had to try and beat him with somebody else, I would probably look towards Arthur's Ride, the Whitney winner, who earned a tremendous speed figure winning that race and can easily bounce back off of a poor effort in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. But City of Troy, from a class perspective, I think he can hang with, if not defeat, the best 3-year-olds in this country. The distance isn't going to be a problem. He's got tactical foot too, which is very important to have over a strip like Del Mar, where front runners and stalkers have performed very well over a mile and a quarter since the track was converted back to dirt about a decade ago. So City of Troy, not the best value play in the race, but he is my top selection.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to for me. I mean, if he's anything close to 5-2, I have to let him beat me in this spot. If he was going to go off at 8-1, if he was going to offer the value of a Saki or Giants Causeway, I could certainly, or Toast of New York, who ran extremely well in this race, I could understand. But at 5-2 in a 14 horse field, facing a lot of intangibles, of course, the great handicapper Harvey Pax had never bet a favorite that's doing something for the first time, which obviously that applies in this particular spot. My concern from him from a race standpoint is if Fierceness and Arthur's Ride get out in front of him and he's stuck down inside getting a lot of kickback and dirt, how is he going to handle that? I just think there's a lot of questions involved in how this race is going to go, which is why I can't settle for him at 5-2. So I landed on Forever Young, a horse that I've been high on for the better part of a year. I picked him in the Kentucky Derby. He ran a winning race in the Kentucky Derby. Dermo Sotogake came out of the Derby, was off 6 months, and came back to run second in this race, albeit a Breeders' Cup Classic last year that was a little bit diluted of talent. But Forever Young has had a prep in preparation for this. His connection said he was about 80% in that prep. He stumbled at the start, still put himself in the race early, showed more tactical speed than he had in the past, opened up lengths, and was an impressive winner in preparation for this. And I just don't think this horse knows how to run a bad race. He hasn't done it yet. He's been thrown every possible scenario at him, going a 1-turn mile against American dirt sprint speed in the Saudi Derby, going into the Kentucky Derby and overcoming a very difficult trip to be beaten, a nose and a head for all of the money, and then shipping back to Japan, being off for 5 months and coming back and running extremely well there. At 6-1, I think that's a square enough price on him. Like anybody else, he needs to work out a trip, and hopefully he gets out of the gate well. But I will land on Forever Young, who I think is probably the best 3-year-old dirt horse in the world. And at 6-1, I'm going to take that. I am curious to see what Next does. I'm glad that they're trying this spot. I think it adds an interesting dimension to the race, and we'll see if he could post the same speed figures that he has been doing going marathon distances at a mile and a quarter. But it is
you get that pace from the outside. There's some outside speed, like you referenced, Darin.
Yeah, no, there is. Definitely there is, which makes it a fascinating race. I think it's one of the more fun Breeders' Cup Classics to handicap that we've actually seen in quite a few years, and definitely excited to see what transpires in the $7 million edition this year. But we'll see. City of Troy, one of the American runners, one of the Japanese runners. It's going to be a compelling edition of the Classic. But even after the Classic, there's more racing this year. 4 more Breeders' Cup races, in fact, and we're going to take a look at a couple of those, starting with the Breeders' Cup Mile, which has no shortage of talent either, Vance, and a lot of European influence here as well.
Yeah, another race the Europeans have dominated of late, especially Godolphin, and I'm landing on their representative here, number 6, Notable Speech. He is the morning line favorite at 7-2, a bit of a lukewarm favorite, but I think I would take 7-2 on him. He's kind of been in and out form this year. Impressive winner of the 2,000 guineas on a day that City of Troy just simply did not show up in. Then he took a step back in the St. James's Palace at Royal Ascot. No visible excuse why he ran so poorly. But then he rebounded in the Sussex Stakes at Goodwood, albeit against a modest field of older milers. And then last time he ran another not so great effort at Longchamp, the Prix du Moulin, but now that one, trainer Charlie Appleby is excusing due to the fact that the ground was soft, and this horse tends to like a firmer, faster ground than the kind that he got at both Newmarket and Goodwood over the summer. So notable speech perhaps isn't the the one that has a greater edge over some of these horses. I mean, you're also kind of looking at number one, Ramat Tuel, the 3-year-old filly. We also have Porta Fortuna, who's pretty talented as well. Ramat Tuel, I think, would be a close second choice for me, coming off of a victory against older males in the Prix de la Forêt. And she's an up-and-comer as well. But I think head-to-head, I think notable speech will have a slight edge here. He should get a great trip here from post 4, and I expect Godolphin's winning streak in this race to continue.
Strong European contention here in the mile as well. James, a lot of contenders, the post position gods were not kind to them, including your selection here. Hope for the Americans, who's drawn the far outside.
Yeah, but I think with this tactical ability, Carl Spackler. I think Carl Spackler has improved in his last 2 starts significantly, and he's going to be tied on for a huge effort. And first off, I just think the quality of these, the Euros have won 4 consecutive miles, but I think their quality's been down. These horses like Ramatui, congratulations on losing a 4-race win, snapping a 4-race losing streak last time. I didn't think that was a strong field. Vance referenced notable speech every other race. He just, it's. I even wonder about Porta Fortuna and Diego Velasquez. I think the Americans are better this year with both Carl Spackler and Johannes. I think they're both going to run really well, but I like Carl Spackler off his last 2 efforts. I thought that was a really impressive performance in the Coolmore Turf Mile at Keeneland. I think his tactical speed, like I said, will ensure a good trip, just like in 3rd or 4th early. And I look for a big effort from the Chad Brown trained runner on the far outside, Carl Spackler.
And with the opposing view, someone who thinks that the Europeans are strong this year, good segue to Ashley.
Well, I'm going with Porta Fortuna, and this is a Donica O'Brien runner. And Donica O'Brien looking to make history like his brother and become the youngest trainer to win a Breeders' Cup race at age 21. And this is a horse that has 3 wins at a mile and then 2 seconds from 5 career starts at the distance on a 3-win streak in Group 1. So I like the form. Not going to get a great price either at 4-1, but trying to not play the favorite here and go with Porta Fortuna instead.
Yeah, I had a theme earlier about European runners that I like that might get overlooked. And I think Diego Velasquez falls into that category in the mile. There are some times where he's been complete no-shows, but those are races and conditions that do not apply to the Breeders' Cup Mile. They're longer distance races where clearly he doesn't want to go a mile and 5/16. He doesn't want to go a mile and a half. And I think if you just draw a line through those races and focus on the races at a mile up to a mile and an eighth, his form looks much, much better if you can hide the rest of that form. So Diego Velasquez, for me, from taking a look at the Europeans, notable speech is going to get a lot of attention. Porta Fortuna, the 3-year-old filly down to the inside. I think 8-1, 10-1 is definitely a square price on this horse. And you're getting Ryan Moore, very quietly aboard. So Diego Velasquez, for me, I think could be the potential value of the international runners. And I'm going to take a big shot with him here in a hugely competitive edition of the Breeders' Cup Mile, which is still not the last race because we're going to talk about one more on the card. The Breeders' Cup Sprint is going to be the last race that we talk about, and always a heavy American influence in here. They seem to do well, and James, I'll let you have first crack at the sprint.
Well, on the straight no chaser in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, number 8, this is a 5-year-old son of Speedster trained by Dan Blacker, who back in last year at Pimlico, last spring at Pimlico, when he won the the Grade 3 Maryland Sprint by 7.5 lengths. I just thought he was going to just have a great rest of the season. I thought he was a superstar sprinter in the making. And he went to the sidelines, didn't return till the run happy in May, had a trouble, broke poorly, got some more time off. I thought his race in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship last time was absolutely brilliant. There was a ton of speed in there, and he went 21 and change and 44 and 1 in an absolute hand ride, I thought, comfortably opening up on the field along the back stretch. And what was really key for a horse like Straight No Chaser was to see him come back, I thought, and work pretty quickly. Dan Blacker got him back on the tab 3 weeks later, and he's put a 5 furlong and half mile drill in on that are pretty quick. I think he's a candidate to hold his form and run a big race. I'd like that draw and post date with to his inside. It's going to give John Velasquez some options. But one thing's for certain, Straight No Chaser will be part of the pace. He'll be prominent from the start.
No question about that. Actually, the Now horse, I guess we can argue, is federal judge who's come on the scene the last couple of months to take over favoritism in this race. We'll give you your shot at making your case for the morning line choice here.
I really didn't want to pick the favorite, but you just have to respect that effort in the Phoenix at Keeneland. And of course, the track was very speed favoring, but I feel like, Del Mar can be speed favoring as well. We do have a lot of early front runners in this field, and so if he gets the early lead, then great, has a great chance. If he doesn't, then this probably is not going to work out for him. But I don't really see any off the pace runners that I like that well either, so I'm just looking for federal judge to get that early lead and go gate to wire. Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. He's won 3 of the last 4 Breeders' Cup sprints, so I have to stick with the Now horse.
Speaking of Now horses, that you can argue that there's more than one. Mulligan has certainly been sensational this year. Vance, he's drawn to the outside here, and you would think that might give Flavian Pratt some options to kind of see what's going on to his inside and make a decision and get his horse in a good spot.
Absolutely. As mentioned, there's a ton of speed in this race, as you would expect in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and a lot of handicappers are going to throw Mulligan into that mix. But this horse has also kind of shown recently the ability to sit right off of the pace, and I think breaking from post 10, I think, as you said, it's going to give his jockey a lot of options, just kind of get the lay of the land as soon as the gates open. And Mulligan has really come on in the last several months, undefeated this year in 4 starts. He's relatively fresh. Has been kind of excelling at distances a little bit longer than this, 7 furlongs primarily in the John Nehru and the Forego, but he is capable at 6 furlongs as well. He showed that winning an allowance at Keeneland to start the year, and at 7-2, I think he's a pretty decent value here for a horse coming into this race in career peak form.
It's been mentioned that there's a lot of speed in this race, and Ashley, you said that you didn't really see anything in terms of off the pace, and I do think there is 1 or 2 that can make a case for that, and one of them is the Japanese runner Remake, who, if you go back and you watch the replay of his most recent race, I think that race is going to be almost exactly the type of race he runs in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I see a great setup from him here. He's run against a very strong group of runners, whether it be in the Mideast, whether it be in Asia. And off that last effort, I think he's primed and ready to run a big one here. And if they go crazy up front, I think he's definitely a candidate to do his best Elmhurst or Lita Justice impression and be a blur in the stretch here for Japan and potentially get the job done in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And I was kind of going back and forth between him and Nakatomi in terms of who I think is going to get the best trip. And the difference between the two is, while Nakatomi does show a tendency to be able to rally from off the pace, I still think his best races are when he's a little bit closer. He doesn't normally win when he has to come from far back, and I think he's going to have to make up a lot of ground, and I think Remake is more accustomed to doing that, and I think the price is definitely right for him. I think Japan has a legitimate chance to win 3 or 4 Breeders' Cup races, to be perfectly honest, and I think Remake is one of those horses that has a legit shot here. So I'll make him my top play in the sprint, and hopefully he comes bounding down the stretch and gets the money from far back. So that's a look at 6 individual races. We do want to highlight an upset pick that we each have at any point of either card. So Ashley, I will start with you. In terms of upsets, which horse are you looking most forward to wagering on?
Ended up landing on Mufasa at 12-1 in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Now, this is a Nacho Correa's runner and making fourth start in the U.S. It's a Chilean bred, and Nacho Correa's got his one Breeders' Cup win with an Argentinian bred. So trying to, he doesn't do that anyway with his stable. But Mufasa likes to sit right off the pace. This is another race with a lot of early speed and looks to be improving last couple starts, has won at 7 furlongs in the last two and had a 100 brisnet speed figure last out. So I think at 12-1 has a pretty good chance in this field.
Yeah, I'm normally not too high on the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. It's actually concluding the card on Saturday this year, and it might be one of the tougher handicapping puzzles of the entire weekend. From a handicapping standpoint, it might be the best Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile I've seen in terms of just trying to find value and not having a dominant presence at a short price for the first time in a few years. So I'm actually looking forward to that race this year, and I do like Mufasa a bit as well. James, the Breeders' Cup Distaff has gotten watered down to about 8 runners. Obviously, it lost Idiomatic. Torpedo Anna is the shortest price morning line favorite, but you're seeking an alternative to spring the upset there.
I am. And listen, I've done a lot of research on the Breeders' Cup past editions. We've seen, numerous fillies. Latruska in the last Breeders' Cup at Del Mar won 5 in a row, was the big favorite and ran 10th. Midnight Bisou had won 7 in a row. But, it was a long, arduous season, and she did not show up with her best in California at the end of a long season. Anna was running these huge races back in March. In fact, her first 4 races this year first 5 races this year were all blowout wins. And the Travers was the first time she'd ever been in a dogfight in the stretch in her entire racing career. And she ran her eyeballs out at 1.25 miles to lose by a short head to Fierceness. That race took something out of her. She didn't come back the same filly at Parks. She was all out to win that day. We see Ness, the 3-year-old filly. She was bet down to favoritism off the board. Heck, a Silver Bullet Day. I could pull out other 3-year-old fillies. They're just too long a season, and I think this is the case for Torpedo Anna. Obviously, Awesome Results got a chance to beat her, but I like Raging Sea. I see the method to the madness with the way Chad Brown has trained her. She ran a huge race in the Chevy 3-back and then took another step forward in the Personal Ensign, a monstrous performance to beat Idiomatic by a nose. There's no way she's moving forward off that race and taking another forward step in the distaff. Chad Brown knew it. He backed off her training. She wasn't cranked at all in the Beldame. She won that race on class alone, and she's poised for another forward move in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. So I'm going to play Raging Sea to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff over Torpedo Anna and others.
Yeah, this is a race that has certainly at times produced, short price favorites that have delivered. Azeri comes to mind, obviously Zenyatta, but has also been a race that has produced monumental upsets in the past. One Dreamer. I remember the great race call from Tom Durkin. Gary Stevens just stole $1 million race, and we've got it on videotape. Back in
Alan Jerkins never won a Breeders' Cup, and he had the big favorite in that race. And
yeah, absolutely. I remember Beautiful Pleasure and Reboletta both went down in flames in this race at short prices. Spain won this race at like 50-1 in 2000. So definitely a race that has produced some huge prices. And if Torpedo Anna gets beat, certainly does open things up possibly for a huge price, because one of the other short price favorites is an unknown in the Japanese horse Awesome Result, who is undefeated. But, we don't know how her class stacks up against some of these. So we'll see how it shakes out. It's a bit of a fascinating angle in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Lance, you are going to the first race of the Breeders' Cup weekend. So you are looking to pad your bankroll early with a price.
Yeah, I'm not sure how heavy I will invest on this horse in the win pool. I think he is certainly deserving of throwing underneath in your exotic wagers, and that's number 9, Shareholder. Now, if you give the top European contender in this race, Whistle Jacket, a good shot to win, then I think you need to look at Shareholder too. The two have met twice before, and their head-to-head matchup is 1-1. Shareholder got the better of Whistle Jacket when they first met in the Norfolk Stakes at Royal Ascot. Shareholder was coming off of a maiden win at Beverly, and then he won the Norfolk by a length. The two met again last time in the pre-morning at 6 furlongs at Deauville, and Shareholder ran no kind of race whatsoever, actually trailed the field. I think it's best to draw a line through that race. Cutting back to 5 furlongs, Shareholder is relatively fresh. This is only his fourth start of his campaign. Whistle Jacket and a lot of the other Europeans have just been on the go all summer and fall, so they might not be quite as fresh as Shareholder. I guess if you have to mention, I've mentioned the positives and a couple of negatives with Shareholder. He does tend to start a little bit slow, which you don't really want in a 5 furlong turf race. And of course, he hasn't negotiated a bend yet. So those are kind of the detriments to Shareholder, but he is going to get a really solid fast pace, as you would expect, to try and close into. And if he does handle a bend, he might be on the scene late to kind of boost your exacta or possibly cash a win bet on.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever looked as much forward to a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint as this year, because the Japanese runner Okoro Sieg is coming with so much buzz in the last week that I'm going to be fascinated to see how much money he actually takes, because I won't call it a consensus, but a lot of people that I respect tell me that this horse is extremely fast. So I'm curious to see if the money comes flooding in on Okoro Sieg and what kind of performance he gives. And if he doesn't, it certainly could amplify the value in the horses around him, including Shareholder, your selection there, Vance, in the Juvenile Turf.
What do you have, Darin? Give us a price now.
Listen, I'm probably getting cute and it's creative, but I have been burned many times in my backyard of New York in marathon turf races because riders fall asleep and let somebody go to the front and they just don't come back to them like they expect. And I think that could potentially happen in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf with Full Count Felicia. There's not any other speed in this race, really. And the other fact is, a lot of these fillies and mares are stretching out from 1 1/8 to 1 3/8 for the first time. And while they naturally could produce more speed going longer, I think that a lot of the connections are going to be a little bit leery about the 1 3/8 distance. You heard Chad Brown talk about why he doesn't have any runners in this race because of the 11 furlong distance. And if they sit back and kind of wait and let this filly go out to the front like she did in the EP Taylor, I don't think she has to come back to them. I know she's not necessarily the caliber of some of the best runners in the field, and the price is going to reflect that. But if you let a good horse, which she is, go out and lead and not challenge and let this horse just coast through fractions, sometimes they don't come back to you. And she's going to be 12, 15 to 1. And that's going to be the angle I take in the Filly and Mare Turf and try to maybe reverse the trend that has burnt me many times watching as a frustrated handicapper in New York turf races.
Well, any chance Didio tries to go for that early lead as well?
Again, that's kind of where I'm coming from. If someone's going to challenge her, they need to change their typical tactics in a Breeders' Cup race. And I'm just not sold that people are willing to do that for this kind of money.
Day at the Spa and Intercontinental, 2 wire-to-wire Filly and Mare Turf winners, and Darin's looking for an upset one with Full Count Felicia.
She's as good as Intercontinental. I'm home.
Yeah, you're going to get every bit of 12 to 1. So I like that angle. Everybody thought that it was a fluke, but maybe it wasn't.
Maybe not. Well, it just comes. This is one of those pace makes the race type of angles. You know, I freely admit she's not the best horse in the race, but I'm hoping I'm going to get in front of the curve on this one and potentially be a separator in some of the multi-race exotics, and certainly use her to hang on for a share underneath in tries and supers. We'll see how it goes. But it's a fascinating Breeders' Cup this year. A lot of great betting opportunities, really compelling stories, strong international contingent, Japanese influence, everything you want in the Breeders' Cup. And we're definitely excited to bring it to you through TwinSpires. And again, want to remind you, we have that money back offer, $10 on all the Breeders' Cup races Friday and Saturday. If you run second or third, you will get that $10 back. You don't have to wait for it. Once the race goes official, within minutes, that $10 will be back in your account. You could churn it right back into the next Breeders' Cup race. Don't forget about the bet share. All the great pick 4s, great pick 5 opportunities. Put your ticket out there. Have people take part. Share in your bet share ticket. And on top of that, a lot of us will be putting out bet share tickets as well. James, Ashley, myself. So if you like our ticket, you can buy a share of our bet share that we're putting out there for all of our TwinSpires players. So be on the lookout for that through TwinSpires social media. And again, if you are a serious tournament player, the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, you can now wager through the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge at TwinSpires, $10,000 to buy in, but you're playing for a high six figures in terms of cash prizes. It is the big major of the tournament schedule and one of the most sought out prizes all season long for the tournament players, the BCBC, as it is so well known. You can now wager on it through TwinSpires. So that closes the book on the Grand Jury, the Breeders' Cup Preview Show. Thanks so much for joining Ashley, James, Vance, and myself. Have a great Breeders' Cup weekend, everybody, and be sure to watch and wager on all the action with us at TwinSpires.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.